Okay, well, welcome to the show. I typically start with talking about your why for doing HYROX and any other sport that you've done. Is there a motivator behind it for you?
Oh, I knew this question was going to come. I think like there's so many reasons why I do sport. Like it's basically like made me into the person that I am today. I think sport teaches you so much. It, like makes you resilient, kind of overcome like hard things. And just like being able to hurt yourself, being able to like, travel the world, meet new people, like it's given me so much. So I think it'd be weird for me not to do sport. And yeah, kind of just yeah, that's like my why. I love pushing myself, like working towards something, like having a goal, and like just seeing what your body's capable of and your mind as well.
Yeah, love it. Okay, and presumably you've done sport for most of your life.
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty much
ki-
like since I was like probably 8 or 9 years old, I remember like running around the garden, having all my friends over. We'd have like little motocross races in the garden. Like everybody would be over from the street and we'd have like bike races. It's just kind of been part of like everything really.
okay, so I know. Let's talk about your sporting background then. So, um, yeah, tell us, from that young age, like what were you doing and what were you doing prior to HYROX?
Yeah, I think so I started racing bikes probably when I was like 10, 11 years old. Like my dad used to be really big into motocross and we used to go to a lot of motocross events and like ride motocross bikes. And then he was getting like injured loads and he decided that he'd start like a little cyclocross team. Him and his mates did that and they started doing cyclocross races. So me and my brother naturally just kind of started going along with him. We were like always out riding the bikes. And it just kind of progressed from there. But it was funny, like I didn't really enjoy it at the time. I just did it like to win like the goodie bag at the end of the race. And you just like meet new mates and stuff. I used to be so like shy of like telling anyone at school that I did cycling. And then like it just progressed from there really. Just like
Okay.
went to competitions every weekend. Yeah, it was just part of like what we did.
So just tell us, for someone stupid like me, cyclocross, what's like a typical race length, and it's like off road essentially, is it? What
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
explain the sport a little bit?
Yeah, so like the elite side of it is probably like the women's race is 50 minutes long, the men's race is an hour long. It's kind of a mixture of like on and off road. There's running with a bike, it's a winter sport. It's kind of got a little bit of every cycling discipline in it. You need to be really strong, fast, and being able to cope with like tough conditions. Like you could be racing up like a really muddy bank, having to get off your bike, put it on your back, run over hurdles. It's a sport that's been around forever. And yeah, I just love every single like part about it.
Okay, and so you got to a very high level in that. So yeah, like, so tell us about that. Like, you got to the elite level. Were you were one of the top in the world at that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's pretty easy if I just like go back a little bit. So I started college at school and then I left after like 3 months or something. Um, and I basically got the opportunity to go and ride for GB. So I moved up to Manchester when I was 18 years old and went on the track team. There wasn't really that many women coming through at that point. So I went up to Manchester, lived with Victoria Pegdutton for like a number of months. And like just kind of everything kind of took off from that point. I was going to World Cups on the track scene. And just like living the life of a pro rider from the age of 18. But everything was quite new to me from that point because before that, I didn't really ever say I'd like train properly. I'd just go and race my bike and like maybe do some like turbo sessions and stuff in the week. But when I moved up to Manchester, like my eyes were just opened. I was around people like Chris Hoy and Bradley Wiggins, all these amazing names like every day, and you just see like what professionalism is. Um, so I did that for like a couple of years and then kind of fell out of love a little bit of track cycling. Like I always loved cycling outdoors. So wasn't really performing. I performed for quite a while. Like I had some like good opportunities. Um, and then like I kind of lost the love of doing it and decided like I didn't want to do it anymore. Got chucked off the program, and then he kind of said to me, "Oh, do you want to we'll give you some like courses to go and do. Like if you want to stop recycling." I was like, "I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to do it like go my own path and do it a different way." and then moved out to Belgium when I was about 20, and then raced on the road a little bit, and then started doing cyclocross again, quite a high level. And then just kind of took a number of years to kind of get my name up there, like in the results. Like at first I was getting lapped, and people had just, I'd be like one of the last in the races because it was such a high level. Like cyclocross in Belgium is like footballers in the UK. It's
Mhm.
massive. It's on TV, like they've got a massive following. And just kind of I just started to train properly, and yeah, success came from doing that stuff.
Okay. When
So I
did
know there's quite a
when
lot there. I've probably rambled on a little bit.
no, no, it's great. When did the switch happen? Like you said, like at first it was you just wanted the goodie bag at the end, but then ultimately you like got to the top level, so you had to become competitive and driven. Was there something that switched there, or was it just a gradual progression?
I think a lot changed. Like I never really saw it as like it was going to be my career. It was just something that I did because I love doing it. I just love racing my bike. But I think at first I did it a lot for other people, to please a lot of other people. Like, you get a name for yourself that you're good at something. So automatically, like, you just think, oh, this has to be my thing then. Like, I need to do it. But maybe I wasn't always doing it for myself. Um, and then a few things happened, like from being on the track team to kind of going on the road scene, which was like my other half, Matt. He had a really bad crash. And like it was near a fatal crash. So when he was like 21, and yeah, he was like just before he turned professional, and it was like seeing him go through all that stuff made you realize that actually, like, I'm in an amazing position here, like living my dream and like being able to race my bike. I need to just like go for it because you only live once and life is so short. I seen Matt come back from that crash, and then he turned professional. And as soon as he turned professional, and I seen him, you know, training like so differently to how we were before, and it was around amazing people, amazing coaches, I kind of started to follow what he was doing. And from that point, when I kind of went all into it and like just just went, gave it my everything, that's when I started to make progress. But it didn't happen overnight. It was like a long-term thing, and it's a lot of like hard points as well through that. But yeah, that's kind of how that progress happened.
Did you enjoy the? I saw you done like a little bit of a post on this a while ago. Actually, did you enjoy the professional life? Like as soon as you went professional, and presumably like it takes over your life to a certain extent. Like,
Yeah.
when it's like that, did you enjoy that or not?
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed. There's bits that are absolutely amazing of being a professional athlete. You get to travel. Like I was on a plane every other weekend, going to different places. It's a community, a little bit like HYROX. You see familiar faces. It's like your family, your friends. But then there's obviously the other side of it is like you spend quite a lot of time on your own. Um, you live away from your family and your friends. You have to say no to a lot of things. The times when, family and friends would have parties or birthdays, or, friends would just have like little nights out and stuff. And, I was, living in Belgium and Girona in Spain, just like, I can't come home for that, because if I come home and I get sick, then I can't do my job.
Mhm.
So there's loads of sacrifices, but at the same time, like it just teaches you so much. And even though you have really low moments, like the highs outweigh all that stuff.
You said about like you spent time with Victoria Pendleton, Chris Hoy, Bradley Wiggins. Does anything stand out like that you took from those people from that time, and maybe like there's presumably there were lots of other people around at that time that didn't reach the level that they did. Is there? Can you put any like put a finger on why that might be?
I think they just were like really professional in like everything that they did. Like it was just their life. And obviously, they're humans at the end of the day, but that's their sport, that's their passion, and they committed fully to it. I think when you put yourself in circles like that, you kind of see what it is to be, why they are so good, why they are the way that they are. Um, and you see them one minute, they're laughing and joking at the side of the track or at the side of the road, like, and then the next, it's like they've flipped a switch and they're like in the zone. And little things like that, I think you just pick up and you learn along the way, and then eventually you get to that point as well.
Hmm. I think I see that in some of the elites in HYROX actually. Like the switch gets flicked, and like they're like race mode is on then at that
Yeah.
point, and they're a totally different person. Um, Tell us, you ultimately went to the Olympics. Uh, was it Rio?
Yeah, Rio. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that experience? And then maybe even like when you realized you were going, was that like a certain race you got selected or anything like that?
Yeah. So again, it was like I'd done cyclocross. I was at the top of the sport in cyclocross. I was like, I would won a World Cup. I'd been on the podium multiple times at World Cups, World Cups, and won like national championships. And it was like the end of 2015. And then I was like, I got to a point in my career where I was about not bored, but I'd been used to doing the same thing for a good few years, and I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So I'd spoke to like one of the team managers from one of the big road teams. It was actually the leading women's road team at the time, called Bowles Dolmans. And they were looking for a rider who could do cyclocross and road. And it was a little bit of a risk for them taking me on because I'd not really raced on the road at that level, and they're obviously the biggest team in the moment at that point. But yeah, they took that risk, and yeah, it paid off. Like I jumped straight in with the girls. It was really nice to kind of be involved in a team rather than being on my own, which is kind of how cyclocross is. Um, and yeah, it turned out to be like, okay on the road. I was doing a really good job for Lizzie Dignan, who was my teammate at the time. She was like obviously in the spotlight to go to the Olympics. She performed amazing in London. She'd got second there. And then she was obviously on, for trying to get a podium in Rio as well. And I think it was just one of those things that I started out with the like a little bit of a dream of like maybe I could actually make it to the Olympics. Like I'm kind of not really from road racing, but I think I can apply myself well and do a good job there. And then all of a sudden, my name's being thrown around and like being talked about being selected for the Olympics. And then so yeah, when I got selected, it was amazing. It was just like this is like a dream come true. Like this is something I'm going to be able to tell my future kids. Like, and just if you're Olympian, it's a pretty big thing, isn't it? But then like this is going to be quite controversial now. Like the actual experience of the Olympics wasn't what I dreamed of, because there was a little bit of Lizzie Dignan had like a little bit of like a few issues with the whereabouts. She'd missed some whereabouts, like which is like an anti-doping thing. And it was like quite a lot of it was in the press. It was like quite negative. And so when we went out to Rio, like all the team was kind of dispersed a little bit. Like Lizzie was staying away in a hotel on her own. I was in the Olympic Village. The other girl that was racing as well, Emma, she was with me, but we didn't kind of click. And it was a little bit like dysfunctional.
Okay.
And even like when we got to race day, I don't think we'd even like been together out on the road and like ridden together. Um, so although I'm like so proud of everything I did to get there, it was a bit of a weird experience at the same time. But I just tried to make the most of it and, do my job as best as I could, and kind of, just enjoy being on that start line and having, that jersey on me and stuff, and,
Yeah, yeah.
being in that position.
Like the achievement of getting there almost is
Yes,
the yeah,
100%. Yeah. I think
yeah.
there was definitely times in my career that I was more proud of, like, or, kind of going to world championships at cyclocross or, on the road, stuff like that, where I felt like I enjoyed those experiences more.
Is there a particular highlight from your cycling career that stands out for you?
Yeah, I think so before like at the end of 2015, I finally won my first ever World Cup in cyclocross, and it was on a course like it was Namur in Belgium. It's one of the hardest cyclocross courses, like very physically demanding. You have to be, flying to, go well there. It's very hilly. There's a lot of technical sections. It's dodgy, like you can crash at any moment. And I remember being on the start line and feeling like, like when everything just feels like it's like falling into place, and you feel like I deserved to be on this startly outline with these people. I had like the world champion next to me, European champion, um, and I'd never really thought about myself like that before. I'd always felt like a bit of an imposter. Um, and I went out there and just had the race of my life, just like took it on from the start and just kind of rode away from everybody and won. And that was my first World Cup. And that's kind of a moment that will stay with me forever because, yeah, I think you work so hard, so long for something, and it doesn't always happen. Well, it doesn't happen quickly. And then finally, like you crack it, you crack a win. And it's just like the best feeling ever.
Yeah, love it. Okay, awesome. Presumably that professional life and like competing on that level came with pressure as well.
Yeah.
How did you cope with pressure, and how do you cope with pressure, and how do you think about that?
I felt like I had a lot of pressure on me in cycling because I always felt like everyone was looking at me for a result, and I'd put pressure on myself. Like looking, it's only like when I look back that I realized like how I was in the moment. I think I had like a lot of anxiety around racing, thinking like I'm going to be perform, am I not? Kind of a lot of doubt about myself. Um, and then when I retired from cycling and kind of looked in, because I think when you're in a sport, you almost become like in a bubble, and
Mhm.
it's like there's not really a world out there other than like what you're in, and you think it's everything. You think everybody's watching you, and everybody has these opinions on you. But then when you step out of it, you realize actually nobody cares that much. Like they'll remember your wins. They might remember your wins. Um, they don't probably remember any of your low points. Only you remember that. And I just I felt like, oh, what a waste of time that was. Like that, having that pressure on myself and feeling like people were actually thinking that of me. So now this is what I love about HYROX is I've totally flipped the switch with it. Like I only put pressure on myself from me. I don't
Mhm.
really think about what or care what others think of me. I just go out there and give my best. And if it's enough to get a decent result, then I'm happy. And if not, then I go away and work harder to do better for next time.
That's good. That's good realization. I think because I think even in HYROX now, like there's probably a lot of people that the fact that your time gets published online and anyone can look it up, there's probably like this paranoia that it's like, oh God, what if people see my time? But the reality is no one really cares, you know?
No, no, it's
Yeah.
you care the most at the end of the
Yeah.
day, and everybody else, they're kind of in their own little world and they're looking at their own times, and they have people are happy for you if you have a good result, but you're not being talked about that much, and it's not like the be all and end all of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you find HYROX, and like what attracted you to it?
So it was I think it was about a year after I had my little boy, so it was like in 2023. Kimberly Key, who I've done a few doubles with, she she'd messaged me and said, "Oh, this is a bit random," because basically we raced together when we were very young on a bikes, but I'd not really heard of Kim for years. She was like, "This is a bit random, but would you fancy doing a high rocks with me?" I was like, "What the hell is a high rocks?" Obviously, gave it a quick Google. And I was like, "That looks absolutely insane," but 100% yeah. Because I think, at the time, I felt a little bit, like, lost having kids and kind of going away from cycling and coming back to, like, the UK to live, and I felt like I just needed something new to focus on, and I just joined a gym before she'd messaged me, actually, so everything kind of fell into place or felt right about, you know, going towards High Rocks and, like, just giving that a go. But I was like such a newbie, like I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. And that first race, it was just, yeah, insane, like in the best way, but also just like the realization of like, crikey, this is like so hard.
This has been pretty much your first full season, right? I know you did some last season. Is there any standout moments from this season? I know you like we're recording this shortly after Cardiff, where you raced. Like, how was that race? How's that gone for you?
Cardiff, it was a bit of a weird one. I think my training had been quite inconsistent up until Cardiff. I've been quite ill with like chest infections over the last couple of months. Um, so it was kind of like clinging at straws a little bit, or, trying to just get the best performance out of myself that I could with the work that I'd done. But in the back of my head, I also knew the work that I had done, and it wasn't what I'd done like before, say Manchester or even like Vienna. Um, so yeah, it was incredible, obviously racing the stadium, but I also felt like it was quite a slow course and quite hard to get like a consistent effort out. I just felt like on the day, I just had one pace, and usually I can really back up the stations with my running, and it just felt, I think it just didn't click. But I was still happy with my time. But yeah, I always want more. I think everybody does, don't they?
Yeah. Do you have Elite 15 aspirations?
Do you know what? I want to say that I should do. But I also know the reality of like what my life is, and I'm a coach, I'm a mom. These aren't excuses. It's just like I know the work that's needed to get to that level. Um, but I'm going to really work hard this summer, and I'd like to think that I can move up a little bit of a level. Like I'd love to kind of be in that, you know, time of like 105, pushing that a little bit more, which I do think I'm capable of. But I just think you need that consistency behind you, and it's kind of whether I can get that or not with, just being able to be healthy, and the feral children are literally bringing bugs home all the time. So it's like, right, another flipping cold, right? Where's it going to go this time? So I think it's more about that.
Okay. How much
But
time
yeah.
are you putting into your training every week at the moment?
So I started working with Beck, obviously, like last July. Like I did the World Championships, and that was just an eye opener because I'd not done any pro weights really before that. It was a scramble to kind of get there. It was like a last minute decision, and after the Worlds, I was like, right, I actually want to train properly. So I started working with Beck. Um,
That's Beck Mason, by the
yeah,
way, for
Beck
people
Rebecca
that
Mason,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's and she set my program in for like, well, for the last 12 months. She's been coaching me. So like I do quite a bit of running, interval running, probably 2 or 3 gym sessions a week, strength training, which is all that's quite new to me. Like I didn't really do much strength training when I race on the bike. And so I still feel like I've got so much to learn with all that. But my,
Okay.
my week's probably like 10 or 11 hours training. Um, if I could, I'd do more because it never feels enough. Like when I was cycling, I was used to doing 20, 25-hour weeks on the bike. So now like doing 10, 11, I'm just like, oh, is it actually enough? But it's a different kind of effort with the HYROX. It takes a lot more out of you, I think. And because I'm so inefficient at running and stuff, it feels like quite hard work.
Yeah, yeah. I asked Beck if she had any questions or anything that I should ask you, and a couple of things came up. But one is about like you in cyclocross, you used to racing every weekend across the season, and it was like more like the question was more like how you find it in HYROX, like not doing that regularly, and like only having a few races a season to prepare for. Like, does that are you finding that good, a bad thing? Would you rather race more often if you could?
Yeah, I think if I was like in the Elite 15, or if I was, um yeah, a little bit better, then I'd think I'd want more races because I feel like races are an opportunity for you to learn. I think you can train as much as you can, but there's nothing like, racing. And those experiences are essentially what I think, will make you be the athlete that you are because you get so much from doing that. Um, but it is very different. Like, yeah, obviously my body is used to racing a lot. And obviously with HYROX, it's, doing like 5 or 6 races in the season. Um, but then at the same time, I have to look at my life now. I've got 2 little kids, I've got my own business. So it actually quite suits me to just kind of have chunks of time to focus on training and then go out and do a race and recover properly and then prepare again for the next one rather than just like smashing myself every weekend and just digging myself into a hole. I think
Mm-hmm.
it kind of depends what your life's like, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the training and your performances, I think you're pretty good on the sleds in general. Do you feel like the biking work has helped you with the sleds in HYROX? Like it's come up a few times on this podcast, but would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think I mean every race I do, I feel like all the stations are different and then I go away and like work on something, come back, and then it would be like totally the opposite again for the next one. Um, but I think I've changed a few of my techniques recently, like on the sled. Like at first I was kind of doing the push where you kind of hold in both hands and like, pushing that way. But now
Yeah,
I'm like wrapping my arms around I don't know what they're called.
poles.
Poles, yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably a name for it, but yeah, we're calling poles. Um, and that feels like a lot better for me. I can feel I can get more power out. But I think with HYROX, like so much of it is mental. Like you have to be able to hurt yourself so much, don't you? And
Hmm.
tolerate a lot of pain for a long period of time. And I think that's definitely one of my strengths. Like I feel like I can do that.
What helps you to do that? Is that like just experiences and having been through that a lot? Is there's something that you think about to help you in those moments?
I think it's just experience. I think it's just time. I think it's just like having done that kind of, racing all my life. I think you just kind of get used to hurting yourself and
Mm.
knowing that, like, you're not going to damage yourself by going hard. And there's rarely a point where I've ever like collapsed on the floor because I've gone too hard. Like, it's all a lot of it is in your mind and your thoughts and how you approach an event. Some days you're going to have it, some days you aren't, and all you can do is like the best on the day.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I've seen you talk on Instagram about like the importance of like periodization of your training as well. How do you think about that? Do you look at it as like a season and you're trying to peak towards the end of the season? Are you periodizing like over a few weeks? What does periodization look like for you?
I think it's a little bit similar to cycling in that like the fundamentals of getting fit are the same. Like for me with cycling, say if I was doing cyclocross in the winter, the summer is what makes your winter. That's the summer, the work that you put in the summer is what helps you be a consistent athlete throughout the whole winter. And I feel like that is also the same with HYROX. If you put a good chunk of volume, like nail the basics, like, get all your movements right, get a really solid, like, with your strength training, do a lot of like running when you can, like get the volume in there, then that top end fitness will come along nicely when it needs to. If you obviously, have your, training like prepared properly and everything. But yeah, I really believe that your summer is what makes you winter. And I think there's a lot of like, sexy, flashy workouts in HYROX, and a lot of people are like drawn to them. Um, it's like this is what's going to get me fit quick, but at the end of the day, it's probably a lot more like the boring stuff is what is going to get you fit, and that's going to carry you through and help you be consistent for the race season.
So you'd strip like as we get to like off season now, you'd strip out a lot of intensity. Would you look to get volume and strength training in, and then
Yeah.
maybe bring intensity back in like what would it be like the 12 weeks before a race or 6 weeks?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, I haven't really got a race book. Well, I haven't got any race booked in apart from I managed to like I think I've like secured a place for well, I have secured a place for Worlds next year, which we don't even know where it is yet. But when I get a race sorted, I'll be able to like, look back at, how much time I've got between now and then and make a plan for going forwards. I need to get a lot stronger. Like I think my upper body is quite weak. Um, and I think strength training especially takes time. Like you can't just get strong in a couple of months training. Like it takes years probably. So I've really got to put the work in with that. And, the high roxy kind of intense workouts, I'll still be doing them, but maybe like cut it back to like once a week, like going through the motions of like what HYROX is. But I think like the fundamentals of just like, your aerobic fitness and ensuring that, you're flexible, all that stuff, your movement patterns are really good is going to be like the most important thing for the moment. And also my running is like I'm okay at running, but I'm not very efficient at it. And I think I can make a lot of gains there.
Hmm.
So I'm going to start working with a running coach as well.
Okay, okay, that must be a nice feeling having got the spot for the worlds next year already.
Yeah, definitely. That was unexpected. I had no idea that was going to happen after Cardiff. I didn't even realize they'd offer a place for Worlds for like this season. Um, but yeah, I thought, oh God, at least I've got one race booked in now. I just hope it's in Europe so I can go because it's a bit of a trek for us to go to America with the kids and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. For people that don't appreciate, I think like if someone qualified in Cardiff, you basically have the choice, right, of choosing to
Yeah,
race in Chicago or wherever it is next season. So
yeah,
you're a year ahead, which must be very nice.
yeah.
Um, let's
Got a year to train for it.
let's talk about like uh this is a bit of a all-encompassing topic, but like managing fatigue in your training, and then also maybe working that around like your monthly cycle. Because I think, like Beck Mason said, that uh, you're probably more focused on that than anyone she's ever met, in terms of like being conscious around like your training throughout the month
Yeah.
changes quite a lot. Can you talk about that area a little bit more?
Yeah, 100%. So when I was cycling, I had probably a period of 10 years where I didn't have a period. Um, I had red S, which is basically underfueling, overtraining, like always doing, eating like the least amount of possible to fuel my sessions. That's just like the mentality how it was at the time. Like it was, I'd say like it was a disordered eating habits for a long period of time. And then once I recognized that and I changed everything and my period started to come back, I realized just like what an impact your like monthly cycle has around your training and racing. For me, it was like, say if I was, because I'd race a lot, obviously every weekend, I'd have maybe 2 or 3 weekends where everything would feel great. I could feel like I'd hit my numbers in training. I'd be going really well in the races, and every fourth week, I'd just like have a totally like disastrous race. I wouldn't perform how I normally would. And like I was just beating myself up so much, thinking like, why is this happening? Didn't understand it. And then finally it clicked that kind of when I looked at my monthly cycle and like my hormone pattern, I realized that that was always in my luteal phase, so like just before my period. And I think that was all quite it wasn't that talked about a few years ago, but now obviously people recognize this a lot more, and I think a lot more women do take notice of it. But I think it's, something that coaches should talk about with their athletes, and they should recognize that some people might struggle with that and kind of adapt your training sometimes, to kind of help you deal with that, so that you're not beating yourself up when you're not going well for a week, and you kind of just back off a little bit and, train when you do feel good and race hard when you do, and kind of accept that I might not feel my best at other parts of the month, but I can still give my best.
Are you, or is she, like consciously reducing, like is it the intensity you're reducing, say during that week? Is it volume? Is it just like not beating yourself up if you're not hitting the numbers? How is it approached?
I think it's always like when I was working with, I'm not actually working with Bex anymore because she's obviously gone to Team Proven and things changed a little bit. But obviously from the last 12 months, it'd be like a case of me saying, look, I don't feel great this week. I'll try and give what I can, but I probably won't hit, these intensities, but I'm going to try and still give full effort and see what it is. Um, and also just sometimes, decreasing the volume a little bit if I'm feeling tired, because I feel like at that time in the month, like your body can only handle so much stress. And when I've got training, the kids, work, like that's a lot going on. Whereas if I just back off a little bit with my training, it'll reduce the stress and like just help me get through that week a little bit better.
Okay. And just touching on the red S a little bit more, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, I
Or
think,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Uh, how did that come about in the first place? Was like weight a factor in your sport, in the cyclocross, that you were consciously trying to stay light and therefore like not consume too many calories? Is that how it sort of manifested?
Yeah, I think it was over a period of time. It was like, I remember when I was about 18, 19, I'd been doing mountain biking and cyclocross, and I was kind of at a point where I was either going to go down the mountain bike path or go on the track. And one of the coaches had said to me within British Cycling, you're too big to be a mountain biker, you're going to go on the track. And that word big at 18 years old, like really stuck with me, whether he meant it as though like you're fat or whether he meant it as though like you just more suited to the track at this time. And it really stayed with me. And I think it planted a little seed in my head. And then like the next few years, it was kind of just a thing. I was always like conscious of like what I was eating. And power to weight is quite big in cycling. You're wearing lycra, and you just get kind of more conscious of what you're putting in your body. And it was almost like the norm to kind of talk about weight, and you'd hear riders be like, oh, I'm fat at the minute, or I'm not going to be going well because I'm fat, or like you'd do a training session and you'd try and get like eat the least amount of possible to get through the session. And I'd always be like on the scales every day, and my mood would depend on like the number on the scale. I think it was one of those things that it just becomes the norm. And for a while it can be, it was good. Like I lost weight. I think I was like, I don't know, 59 kilo, which is quite light for someone of my size. And my performance was going up. Like I was training really hard. I'd lost weight and I was going really well. But then after a couple of years, my period just stopped. I started to get little injuries, little niggles. Like, and just like mentally, it was just something that was always on my mind, like my weight and what I was eating. Um, so it played like a massive part in like cycling at the time, but a lot of people are like that within cycling. It is changing. And I think it's totally changed the last few years. It's all about high carbs now and fueling your body and, ensuring that your body has got enough carbs, to give you the best performance it can. I think is it Cameron Worth or something? He got the fastest Ironman leg in history on the bike a couple of months ago, and he rides for Ineos. I think he was taking like 200 grams of carbs an hour for that kind of effort. So it's totally flipped. But I remember, when I was cycling, it was like, not you basically were trying not to eat on the bike, even in racing. And I remember sometimes even being hungry in a race and thinking, no, I can't eat anything because I'm trying to like lose weight. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the
It's
headspace that I was in at the time.
yeah, yeah. I can see that. And I mean, it's flipped. It's flipped probably at that level, but I think it's still probably prevalent, even in like a sport like HYROX,
Yeah.
especially where running is a major factor as well. And there's that temptation to lose weight and maybe like, end up underfueled for all the work that's going on. So I think it's like an important topic to sort of make people aware of, at least.
Yeah.
Is there? You sort of touched on like you didn't have a period for a number of years, which is certainly one of the common things with like Red S. Um, is there anything else like that you noticed at the time? Like I guess like the niggling injuries, maybe stress fractures, I think are a factor.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that like you look back on and think, yeah, that was a sign? Or
I probably just like low mood, or just, yeah, not feeling great and not enjoying what I was doing. I think it was just like one of those things where I was tired a lot of the time, and just, I was training so hard and not resting properly and not giving my body the fuel that it needed to recover and perform the next day. I was doing really big weeks, 20-25 hour weeks on the bike, and it was just like this vicious circle of just feeling like worse and worse.
yeah,
Um, but it's not until like even at the Olympics, like I can remember being in the Olympic Village, and they've got so many different food stores in there. It's absolutely insane. And I remember just looking like, right, where's the veggies? Where's the fish? Where's the chicken? And like having low carbs, even before the Olympics, like I was underfueled. Which, yeah, you just think about like, why was you doing that? But after that point, it was just like I kind of just realized like this isn't good. Like, I need to start fueling better. And when I started with working with a proper like sports dietitian and also a sports psychologist, that started to get me out of the hole. And I realized, okay, like I need this food to help me perform. And once I started eating properly, I just felt amazing. I could train properly, I could recover, and that gives you then confidence to kind of stick with it. And then
mhm.
from that moment on, really, my period started to return, and everything changed. I think there's a lot of people that do have Red S and they probably don't know about it. Even a lady after the weekend actually messaged me and said that from HYROX, she said that she'd just been diagnosed with Red S, and because she chat with me. I think it's just the thing of like talking about it might help others like, realize, okay, maybe I'm like that as well. Maybe, I can get some help, get a nutritionist, dietitian to have a look at what I'm eating, how I'm fueling.
Yeah, yeah. Was it quite quick, the like the benefits that you noticed from eating more? Did it like the periods return quite quickly after that?
No, no, they didn't. Probably took like 2 years. I think even like when I like retired from cycling, they was still like a little bit erratic. Like I wouldn't have them every month, but they were there still.
Mhm.
Um, I think the periods, because there's so many, like you have so many deficiencies from not fueling properly, your body takes time to adjust, um, to kind of eating again. But I definitely noticed the difference in my performances and being able to recover. Like pretty much after a month of doing it, your body's just like, give me the carbs. These like make me feel good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does make a massive difference.
How do you think about fatigue now in your training and coaching? Like not necessarily just like purely related to Red S, but um like obviously fueling for your training is important, but you do have to push yourself so you are fatigued at times,
Yeah.
but also not put yourself too far in the bin so that you can't recover. How do you think about that and manage that?
Um, I think it's a real balance. I think everyone is so different with this. I think it just entirely depends like what your life is. Like obviously if you're a professional athlete, you've got all the time to train, but you've also got big chunks of time to recover. And then you're obviously adapting to the work that you're doing. But when you're someone who has got a job and kids and family and all that other stuff going on, it's like where is the time to rest? Like you've got to carve that time out and be quite you've got to be quite like strict with it, I think, because otherwise you
Mhm.
end up just digging yourself into a hole. I think a lot of like society is now is like do more, do more, do more, when actually sometimes it's about doing less to get the best out of yourself. And going into training sessions a little bit fresher so that you can really hurt yourself in the ones that are hard, and the easier ones are easy for a reason so that you can recover. And yeah, I think I think it's a hard one, but I think you really have to make that time to focus on your recovery, because if you're just nailing yourself all the time, you're just gonna go backwards, you're not gonna go far.
So I can't remember who it was someone saying once, like if someone goes from like a non-professional athlete to a professional athlete, like one of the main changes isn't necessarily that they suddenly train for 10 hours more per week. It's actually that they just get time to rest so that
Yeah.
when they do come to their training, they're more rested for it. It's actually one of the, like, it's not necessarily true that they're just training tons more. They're actually resting more
Yeah.
they're able to rest more to facilitate it. Do you use anything like any sort of tools, any tech, anything like that to monitor recovery and fatigue? Are you like tracking heart rate or HRV or anything?
I think for me, like, sleep is a big thing. If I can get a decent chunk of sleep, it's again the basics. Like, I think a lot of people look at all the little, like, trying to get the little 1%, this whole thing of like marginal gains. We've got to find the tiny little bits, but actually people are missing out on the big chunks of things like sleep and nutrition. Like, they make the biggest difference to your workouts and your recovery. Um, so obviously, yeah, it's nice to like, jump in an ice bath or go in a sauna, but sometimes like that's more stress for me because I've got to get in the car and go somewhere to do it. Whereas if I can just go upstairs and put my headphones on and read a book for 20 minutes, escape the kids, like that gives me a little chunk of time to rest. So I think it's again like not looking at the shiny, like, fancy stuff sometimes, and just bringing things back to kind of like, what can I do that's going to be the simplest option for me that's just going to allow me to just switch off and let my body relax.
Yeah, yeah. If HYROX hadn't come along, what do you think you'd be doing and focusing on now?
Um, I'd probably be a little bit lost, I think, to be honest, because when I'd had Ida and Daya, I was still cycling quite a bit. I wasn't racing. I wasn't obviously, traveling around being a professional athlete, but I was still riding my bike. But it was, I was kind of getting to a point where I was a little bit bored of it because I'd just done it for so long. So, I mean, I maybe running. Maybe I'd kind of go more into running. I love running around where I live. I think it's like there's loads of off-road routes, and maybe I'd just do a little bit more racing, kind of that side. But I absolutely love HYROX. It's just like got a little bit of everything that I love. And also like the community and everything. Everyone's so friendly. It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Um, we talked about like your best sporting experience or one of, but is there anything that stands out as your toughest?
Um, yeah, probably. So it was in 2017. It was at the European Cyclocross Championships. We had a really fast start. It was on gravel. So it's like a mass start. The gun goes and you're all off. And straight away, like after about 200 meters, there was a tight left corner straight into a field and down a technical descent. So it's really, really important in cross to have a really good start. Um, so I went off the line, got to the end of the straight, and basically clashed handlebars with another girl. We face planted gravel at like, it would have been like 60k an hour. Smashed all my face open, had like my lip was pretty much hanging off. Had to be like taken to hospital. My face was it was just such a mess. I had loads of stitches in my lips. Um, and it was just like one of those things that really affected me in my racing for like probably 6 to 7 months afterwards. I had concussion. I was scared to get back on the start line because I was scared that I was going to crash again. And that was like a real mental battle that I had to like overcome. And that's why I also worked with a psychologist at the time to kind of just get me back on that start line and feeling like I can just commit again without feeling like I was going to, fear everything.
Yeah. Was it just time needed for that? Was there like one thing that the psychologist sort of shared or told you like that really helped?
I think she just said like, Nikki, you've done like so many of these starts before that have all gone well, and you've had one day where it's gone very wrong, but the chances are that you'll get back on the bike and that you have a start and it will just be like it was before. There's always going to be a chance that you're going to crash in a race. That's just part of it, especially in cycling. Um, and it was almost just like ripping that band-aid off and just doing it and just doing it over and over and over again in training and racing to build that confidence back. And I think she said like, you need to have like almost like a little like a pretend like bank of confidence. So every time you go out there and you do a start, like you add that to your confidence bank and you remember that, and then you take it into your next race and your next race. It's again like a time thing and patience, but it's just about doing it at the end of the day and just like, yeah, just getting on with it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Last question, really around like the HYROX training. Is there something that you believe about training that a lot of people would disagree with, or what's the best piece of advice someone's given you while training for HYROX?
Oh, that's quite a hard one. I think I think with HYROX, like there's no like magic workout. It's about doing a little bit of everything and being like patient. I think, yeah, I mean it's kind of gone off a bit now from your question, but
Is
this is
it
mum brain.
either the best piece of advice someone's given you while training for it, or is there something that you believe that a lot of people would disagree with?
Um, I just think about like the basics, like the basics of training far outweigh all the fancy stuff. And yeah, I think there's a lot of information out there, probably too much information, and you've got to learn to listen to your body and yeah, not really kind of look at what anyone else is doing and just focus on what you're doing, and using like the process of training towards something is like that's going to be your confidence when you stood on like the start line of the race.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, what are your race plans now? So you've got nothing booked until the Worlds next year.
No.
So you're not doing Chicago this year?
No, I'm not going to do it. I did really want to go to Chicago, but at the end of the day, it's quite a big trip for us. I've got two little kids. If I wanted to go there, I'd want to do it properly, and that means obviously going out there a little bit before to kind of get used to the timing and everything, and dealing with the jet lag. I've been to America and stuff quite a few times before, and I know, that takes a good week for me to adapt to the time zone. Um, and just yeah, I think it's quite a big ask this year for me to do that, but I'm hoping that it's in Europe next year because I would love to do it. Um, but I've also got like a half marathon that I've booked in like a month's time, so I'm going to kind of work a little bit towards that. I'm hoping to do Strive and like get myself in a team for that as well at Forders, and probably that's just like another few little 10K races and stuff in the mix to keep me sane. I feel like you have to have something in the calendar to
Yeah.
work towards, otherwise it's just like, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah, yeah. I must admit now, like now I've raced Cardiff, I've got nothing else in the calendar, and it's just
Yeah,
like,
I was going to say
oh God,
that.
like I need to book a race. It feels too
You do
long.
you do like running races and stuff as well, or?
I don't tend to, no, to be honest. Like that's one thing I like about HYROX is that like it's a kilometer and then I can do something else, whereas like a half marathon doesn't particularly appeal to me. Although maybe that's a sign that something that I should do.
Yeah,
Um,
step out your comfort zone, get yourself in a half
yeah,
marathon.
yeah. Have you got a time hope for your half?
Well, last year I did the same one, and I think I got like a 1:32, but I'd love to get like a 1:30 or something. I'm not massively fast. It's, like I say, running isn't like a natural thing for me. I have to work hard at it, but I know how to push and hurt myself. So yeah, if I can have a good day and like just feel like I can hurt myself and give the best I can on the day, then I think I'll be happy and see how it goes.
Okay, awesome. So you, if people want to follow you, find out more about you, you do coaching as well, I believe,
Yeah.
for HYROX. Where should they go to find out more about that?
So just Instagram, Nikki Brammeier. That's it.
Okay, all right, awesome. Well, thank you for this.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having me.
appreciate talking, and yeah, hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.